Please can I ask that everyone puts their microphones on mute throughout the session. Again, click the microphone icon in the toolbar to turn this off. There'll be time for questions and feedback at the end of the presentation, but also throughout the session, please use the chat function, and that's the speech bubble on the toolbar, to post any questions or comments, and we'll cover these later on in the presentation. We are going to show 3 videos this evening, so if you do have any problems viewing these, it may just be down to individual connectivity or device settings. Don't worry, you will have the opportunity to see these later, and we'll make sure that everyone has access to the recording. So before I go over the session aims and outcomes, we'd like to play a short video providing further details about our society, which I hope you find useful. If I can now go over the aims of this evening's session. What we're going to provide is an overview of why and how we support our local communities through grant giving, give you the information that you need to make an online grant submission, and offer guidance on making your grant bid the best it can be. What we'll show you now, fingers crossed, is a video demonstrating why and how your co-op supports local communities through its grant opportunities. Okay, thank you. Now on to how our grants work. Now, with any grant provider, criteria will always apply, and the slide you can see here shows the 3 basic criteria for application to both of our funds. You must be a member of Mid-Counties with at least a 3-month qualifying period at the time of application. Your group must be fully constituted, and what this means in the most basic of terms is that your group has a bank account in its own name. The group must have been operating for at least a period of 1 year. And finally, the base of your group must be within 5 miles of one of our trading sites. The applicant, as the applicant, you must have a direct active involvement with the group that you're applying on behalf of. Now, we'd always ask the applicants read through the full criteria for both of our funds prior to application, as there are additional criteria for our 2K grants around specific funding areas. So this just enables you to ensure that your group is eligible to apply. And the full criteria for both funds is permanently available on the grant pages of our website for you to view. So what do we fund? Overall, we'll prioritise our funding on projects that align with our current priorities, which are environmental projects, social inclusion, development of young people and community cohesion projects. And these are the 4 specific areas that our panel is particularly interested in seeing applications around, and they'll be given priority in the judging process. So you might be thinking there, well, my project doesn't fit quite into one of those areas. Is it worthwhile me applying? And the answer is yes, of course. We understand that the theme of projects is wide and varied, so this shouldn't deter you from applying. The next 2 slides I'll show you give examples of the types of projects that would fall into these priority areas. So here we have our environmental theme. Projects can be anything from funds to installing composting bins to supporting events locally that raise awareness of climate change and how our communities can play their part in making small changes to help. Development of young people. This does cover a broad range of projects to support young people from 16 to 24 years of age. Examples of which are funds for a group that wishes to provide activity sessions specifically for young carers, or perhaps the purchase of equipment to facilitate healthy cooking classes for youngsters. Community cohesion projects encourage people to come together and work together for the benefit of all. And an example of this could be funding to create a community allotment that can be used by the whole community to grow fruit and veg, encourage skill sharing, understanding of where food comes from, and using the food grown locally to make healthy meals. And social inclusion projects could be the provision of funds to support adults with learning disabilities to learn new skills and build confidence, along with projects that support the homeless back into work through education, mentoring and work experience placements. So what makes a good application? In essence, the 3 areas shown on the slide are a really good basis to start. Be prepared, be clear, be detailed. Now, allowing yourself time to digest the application questions is a must. You can then prepare all of the information you need in advance. And what I would say is imagine yourself as one of our judging panel. How would you like to see the information presented? Always consider that someone else has to read through the application, so give yourself time to think about your words and how you describe your project the best way possible. Be conscious of any specific terminology you use relating to the group or project. The clearer you are, the better our judging panel will understand this element. Now, the devil really is in the detail. Explain how the need for the proposed funding was identified. For example, did you consult with service users, the local community, and explain why this project is so important to them. The anticipated impacts and outcomes of your project are also key to the application. How will this project make a real measurable difference? This is really important part of your submission. So again, take the time to think about how you best describe it. Impact. What happens when you've completed your project? We'll always contact you once your project is completed to ask for your feedback. And you can do this via the grants online dashboard, the same way you logged in to apply for the grant in the first place. But we really don't want our partnership with you to just end there. As a community partner, we'll invite you to local events such as our half-yearly meetings and other events where you can showcase the work of your group to our members. We may also ask you to provide us with a short video of the project and how it's made a difference. And you might find that you're contacted by one of our team to give a more detailed interview about the group and how the funding is being used. We can then create a really great article to share with members so they have updates on what's happening locally in their community. So if we can just recap on the information from the video and the slides, we've got 2 levels of funding. Our local community funding offers grants of up to £250. It's accessible via the online platform using your member number, and these tend to have a really quick turnaround, usually between 2 to 3 weeks. The Mid-Counties Co-operative Community Funding offers larger grants of up to £2,000, accessed online in the same way as the other grants programme, with an end-to-end process taking around 16 weeks. So you need to bear this in mind in terms of the time frame for the grants to ensure that this is in line with your project dates, as we don't award funds retrospectively. You won't have to provide any additional documentation to support either funding applications, such as bank statements. So the question you want to ask is, when can I apply? Our 250 grants are open all year round. So the really great benefit of this fund is that you can apply at any time. The £2,000 grants open twice a year, with the next application window opening on the 23rd of August. So keep your eye on our website for further information on this. So what we've got here is just a few pictures of some of our amazing community groups that have received funding from us from either the 2K fund or the 250 fund. Really hope all of that information was of help. We may have had some chat questions, or I know we've had some members putting questions to us earlier on as they weren't able to join us. So Karen, can I ask you to field a few for me?
Yeah, so I've got a question. As a colleague, can I apply for a fund, one of the grants?
Yeah, absolutely. A colleague is a member, and therefore they can apply in exactly the same way. The colleague needs to have that ongoing active involvement with the group, for example, chair, trustee or volunteer.
I've got another one that says, my group isn't a registered charity. Does this mean I can't apply?
No, absolutely they can apply. As long as the group has a community purpose, it's fully constituted in terms of bank account in its own name, that's fine. We actually understand that not all groups have the required level of income to be registered as a charity, you know, your small guide groups or whatever. So as long as that community purpose is there, they don't have to be a registered charity.
Okay, I've got another one here that says, if I have already been given a 250 grant, can I also apply for the 2K grant in the same year?
You can, yeah. You're able to apply to both funds. So if you've applied for a grant and been successful, a 250 grant, say in June, when the 2K fund opens in August, you can still make an application. That's absolutely fine.
Pete's asking, Debbie, what happens after the grant is given? How do we stay in touch, or do we ask for continued contact?
Okay, yeah, we'll stay in touch with the group. As I mentioned in the presentation earlier, we've got many local events certainly planned for the future, which we absolutely would love for all of our community stakeholders to get involved with. So that might be an event in Oxford, Bicester area, for example. So we'd look at those groups that we've engaged with who are from that area, and we would say to them, we'd love you to come and join us, talk about your group, share with our members details about your group, share about the funding that you've had from us and how you spent this, how it's made a difference. So we absolutely do keep in touch with all of the people that have received funding from us.
Right, someone's put their hand up, but I can't actually see who it is. So if you've got your hand up, if you want to take your mic off and ask your question.
Hello, my name's Geeta Patel and I'm involved with a women's organisation. I did make an application on behalf of the organisation, and it was aimed at a very diverse group of women who would learn about the cooperative history and how it's working in present day society. So it was very much about knowledge and awareness raising. and it would have been done by workshops. And so the beneficiaries would have been sort of around 12 to 15 women. The feedback I got around not getting the funding was that, you know, you wanted more bang for your buck. So it was more important for you to reach more people than it was, this is my phrasing, than about a smaller number of beneficiaries having really good quality intervention done with them. Would you say that that is the case?
Can I ask you, was this a low level grant, or was it the higher level grants that you applied?
It would have been the higher level grant, because you couldn't run, you know, a series of workshops around cooperatives for, in my opinion, for £250.
And sorry to ask, just to give me a bit of context,
Yeah.
has it been this past year or prior to that?
It hasn't been in this past year, it was the year before.
Okay. Without me being able to see a lot of the detail around it, obviously our criteria, as I say, around the 4 key areas, obviously they are given the priority. Now, obviously, as you can appreciate, we receive hundreds and hundreds of applications. The money we have isn't infinite, you know, it does run out. And the judging panel
I do understand, you know, I do understand the pressure that all funders are on. I suppose I'm just asking, you've given some priorities, yeah? But I suppose for me, the question is, you know, would you rather that we trained 100 women around cooperatives and didn't do it very well, or did it in a very surfacey kind of way? Or would you rather that we did it with a smaller group of people who really would gain a proper understanding and in fact would choose to be involved in cooperative activities?
I think you're absolutely right. It shouldn't always be about the numbers. I mean, obviously, Geeta, I'm not part of the judging panel.
No.
I would agree, you know, certainly that it's not always about the numbers.
Debbie, can I jump in for a sec? Sorry, Geeta. It's Pete Westall, so I look after this part of the world to a certain extent. One of the things, Geeta, which is massively important to us mid-counties, we're a member-owned organisation. It's our elected members who sit on that grant panel. It's quite important. It's not management making the decision. It should be members making the decision and members.
Absolutely.
I'm intrigued, I've got to say, and I know Debbie's going to stare at the camera. If you're okay, let me have a look at it with Tara and Debbie as well, because at face value, it does seem, how can I put it? It seems as though it could be worth looking at. Certainly from a criteria point of view, our elected members would say, that's the criteria, that's what they're trying to do, but there's got to be some sort of judgment call in there. But it certainly wouldn't be the case that we would stop doing something for the in-depth for a few to concentrate on the many, if that makes sense.
I mean, I would say that I would need to review the application because it was, you know, a couple of years ago and life has moved on, hasn't it? But it was more about that issue really about, and I can again understand from a funder's point of view that you want to reach as many people as possible.
If you're okay doing that, we'll have a look and come back to you if that's okay.
Geeta, are you able to tell me the name of the group the application was made under, and I can find that information out for you?
Yes, it's called Women of Wolverhampton.
Okay. Thank you, Geeta.
Okay.
Thank you.
I've got a question here from David. Can you apply for grants for 2 separate groups, or is it only one allowed per community funding session? So, David, would you like to take your microphone off mute? Do you mean that can one person apply on behalf of 2 groups? What do you actually mean by that question?
Yes, that's what I mean. Can one person actually apply for grants for 2 separate groups at the same time? You have to split them.
Okay, now, yeah, it's a great question, David. If you have an active involvement with both groups, as some people do, then yes, there's no reason why, you know, you are involved with both groups that you can't make an application for on behalf of both groups.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Right, I've got a hand up, but I don't know if that's from before. So has anybody else got a question? If you want to take yourself off mute and ask the question.
Is that me?
That's just, yeah, I've got, Geeta, I've still got your hand up.
I'll take it off.
Okay, lovely, thanks. I can then just see if anybody else has got their hand up. Right, I've still got a hand showing. Has somebody else got a question?
Yeah, it's me, Rose. Can you see
Okay,
me?
Rose, yeah, okay, over to you.
I was curious about the rule about how long a group has had to have been constituted. If I remember rightly, it was a year, wasn't it?
That's correct, yes, Rose, 1 year.
Okay, I was wondering if there's any leeway on that at all, partly because during lockdown, as a lockdown fever hit me, I've managed to set up a defibrillator group, and I'm very encouraged by a meeting and a online session you ran last week too. And we have been lucky enough to apply for various grants, and a running group has helped to fundraise. But of course, it's only just started this since formally constituted with our bank account since this year. So are you absolutely tied to the group having to be fully constituted for 1 whole year in order to purchase, support the purchase and training and involvement of the community and applying for a grant?
Okay, Rose. No, I'm going to say that the criteria is the criteria. That's obviously made by our fund trustees. If either Pete or Tara wants to come in to say if there would be any leeway on that.
Sorry, do you want to repeat the question for me, please?
Okay, so Rose wants to know, obviously her group is fairly new. With COVID and everything last year, obviously their constituted status hasn't taken them into the year so far. So Rose wants to know, is there any leeway? Now, I've just said obviously that's the criteria at the moment, and obviously that is criteria that's set by our trustees. But obviously I wanted to ask the question to perhaps you and Pete if you thought there maybe would be any, because of the circumstances with COVID last year.
I think it's one of those things that clearly, with exceptional circumstances, the trustees made some decisions about where money was directed last year. From my point of view, I think it is one of those things that I think we've potentially got a trustees meeting set up, Debbie, for the summer to actually ask that question before opening the next grants round in September. To see whether or not there's anything that they want to make some adjustments to. So I don't think it's no, that's the rules. I think it's our place to pose that to the trustees, but it is the trustees that will make that decision, because it would be a rule change that would need to be applied.
Thank you, Tara.
Okay, Rose, yeah, brilliant. Has anyone else got any questions? I have got another one that came in asking, can individuals apply for grants? Okay.
The fund is not set up to support individuals. As mentioned, they do have to be a constituted community group or charity, having a bank account in their own right. So unfortunately, our fund wouldn't be suitable for individuals.
Okay. And I've got one more that says, can you apply for funding to support projects that have a total cost exceeding £2,000?
Okay, yeah, that's absolutely possible. However, within the criteria, we do explain that if the total project cost is over £2,000, then the group does have to have raised 75% of the overall costs prior to application. So, for example, if your project costs are £10,000 at the time of application, you would have needed to have raised £7,500, and we do ask you to detail this on the online submission.
That's it. Oh, I've got one more, sorry. How many times can you apply?
Okay, so the 250 fund, you may apply once every 12-month period, and for the £2,000 grants, you can apply. If you're successful, then you have a period of 3 years before you can reapply.
Okay, and I can see someone else has put their hand up, but again, I can't see who it is. So whoever that is, if you want to take yourself off mute and ask your question.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Karen and Peter. My question was relating to the type of grants. So what type of things can we apply for? Because I'd like to maybe uplift and do a mural down the alleyway, which connects from the Allaby Primary School to the residential road. So is that something that you could look at? We could look at maybe putting a a bid in for, or to apply for that?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we're not so scripted that we say you can only apply if your project falls within some of those key areas. We realise projects are very widely varied, so I would always say give it a try, apply.
Yeah, exactly. Give it a stab. And then where do we get the forms from? We download it from?
Okay, it's via our web pages. Karen, can you put the link into the chat?
Yeah, and then I'll copy and paste it. Yeah.
And then it's via the Mid Counties website in the community pages, but I'll get Karen to put that in the chat for you.
Thank you.
Okay, Imran, you've got your hand up.
I think that was Imran that had.
Okay, right.
There you go. I've put the link in there for the fund, the grants fund.
For some reason, I can't seem to open the chat box on my mobile phone. Not sure whether that's because it's just a bit limited in what you can do. Is there any chance you could email it me?
Yes, of course. We can get your email address from our member records if you're happy with us to do that.
Yeah, that would be great, and then I can at least kickstart the process and get the ball rolling.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any more questions? Right, I've got here from Julie. I work for a charity which I would like to apply for funding for, but I am also doing some work for another charity. Can I put in bids for both?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, if you have an active involvement with two different groups, you may be a volunteer for one, a trustee for another. As long as you've got that involvement with both of them, you can make that application on their behalf.
Rose, you've got your hand up again, or is that from last time, my love?
No, that's me again.
Okay.
Is there any difficulty in applying for funds for things that might normally in the past have once been provided for by a local authority?
Within the criteria, and that's why I sort of mentioned that you should always fully read the criteria, because there are exemptions in terms of a school. So a statutory organisation wouldn't be allowed to apply because they get that government funding. A school that has a parental fundraising arm, a friends of, they may make an application because they're sort of the little charity within the school, if you like. But in terms of a school, that applying for funding, or any group applying for funding that would buy something that would normally be funded through statutory money, that wouldn't be within the criteria.
No, my question was related to community trees. We've had 4 community trees planted many years ago by our local authority. 3 have been felled. The other one's dying, and they're talking about just concreting over because there's no money to replace them. I wondered whether we could get the community association to apply for funds towards replanting those trees if it was agreed by the local authority.
I think you would need to give it a try, put the application in, and have it go through the channels of the judging process. That would be, as I say, always worth a try.
Okay, thanks.
Geeta's just said, Debbie and Pete, I have an end of grant report ready as you gave us a small grant, Geeta. Did you want to elaborate on that, Geeta?
I thought you'd be happy to know that, Debbie and Pete. So I'm not sure what format you want it in. I suppose it's really linked to what Pete was asking earlier, how is it that you keep in touch, or do you, so I've just realised that I have actually written an end of grant report to you. Okay.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, if we're going back a little while, it will be a paper version. The end of grant stuff is now, we've made it a lot more, the member experience is a lot better now, so it's all done online.
Is it? Okay. I'll have a look at your, is it on your website then, or is it on your?
If it's for a historical grant that's going back more than a couple of years, it'll still be the paper format. But if it's for the newer grants, anything from sort of 18 months ago going forward, you would provide your end of grant information via the online dashboard. But you always get a link from us to say it's time to do this.
Okay, super, thank you.
So no, Rose, have you seen that message from Tara? It says, Rose, it may be a small low-level grant, might cover the cost of the trees, so maybe email the details and Deb can review it for you if being planted within our trading areas. Brilliant. Right, has anybody else got any questions? No, nobody else got any hands up. I haven't got any more left, Deb, so.
Okay, thank you all. There's some really great questions there, and I hope that everybody shared that information and has found it really, really useful. So if everybody's done now, we'll sort of carry on. So what we're going to show now is a short video from our Society President, Helen Wiseman, to formally close the session.
Hello, I'm Helen Wiseman, Society President, and I'd like to thank you for joining us for this session today. I hope that you found it both interesting and informative. This is part of our ongoing commitment to get members more involved and listening to their views on the society that they own. I'm delighted to tell you that we've been nominated as Leading Co-op of the Year, and you can find out more about how to vote in this award at the end of the video. And finally, I look forward to our AGM on the 13th of May. I hope that you can join us, take part and vote on issues that matter and find out how we are driving the success of your society, supporting our communities and working towards a better, fairer world. Thank you.
And as you just heard Helen speak about in a video, if you haven't already registered for our AGM taking place on Thursday, you can still do this up to about lunchtime tomorrow. So you can visit our website to book your space, scan the QR code that you can see on the screen now. You can also vote for mid-counties, which we're delighted to have been nominated for Leading Co-op of the Year by visiting the website address on screen, which is allthews.uk.coop/vote, and you can vote for us. That concludes the presentation. Thanks everyone for joining us. I hope the information provided has been helpful and will assist you in making a grant submission to us. And I look forward to seeing you all again, and of course hope that you can join us at the AGM tomorrow, where your contributions and ability to vote will continue to shape our cooperative. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your evening.